The microphones are sensitive, so please speak directly into them. Without objection, your written statement will be made a part of the record. With that, Mr. Witt, you are now recognized to give an oral presentation of your testimony for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ranking Member Comer, thank you, and the members of the committee. It's my privilege to appear before the committee today to talk about issues that are very important to our citizens and our communities. These issues involve how we work together to mitigate, prepare, respond, and recover from disasters. I have dedicated my professional and personal career working with communities on these issues. I had the privilege of serving as Director of FEMA from 1993 to 2001. President Clinton recognized that in the aftermath of a disaster, it was important that our citizens could count on the government to be there and help them when they needed it the most. I came to FEMA during a time when this philosophy was not often followed. I was tasked to rebuild an agency that several members of Congress called for abolishing after mismanagement, poor responses, and performance in disasters like Hurricane Andrew and Nikki. With strong support from Congress and the administration, we proceeded to reform and rebuild FEMA. We were immediately tested with the devastating Midwest floods of 1993. This flooding impacted 9 states. We streamlined our operations, we responded well, but we wanted to engage individuals in a program that would prevent the economic and social dislocation caused by the flooding from ever happening again. With the support of Congress, we engaged local citizens in a voluntary program to buy out their homes in the floodplain. In Missouri alone, we bought out over 4,000 homes in one whole town. This town had flooded 41 times in its history. There's 18 businesses and 42 residents, and they all agreed to relocate on a hill. The only one that did not agree to relocate was the mayor. We initiated the program. Throughout my time at FEMA, mitigation became the high priority. The idea was to prevent people and communities from becoming victims of disasters. We initiated a program in 1997 called Project Impact, Building Disaster Resistance Communities. The program provided seed money to communities if they would take 4 simple steps: form a committee of all community-wide partners, identify their hazards, prioritize a plan to address each hazard, and communicate their actions to reduce the hazards. We started out with 7 communities, and by 2000, we had 250 communities in this program. Congress gave me $25 million for this program. We had communities wanting to join this program. They didn't want any seed money. They wanted us to help them build the public-private partnership to eliminate their risk. The last summit we had in Washington for this program was in 2000, and there was 2,500 local officials and volunteers and partners that attended this summit. We had over 1,000 corporate and business partners participating, like NASCAR, Home Depot, and many others. It was a very successful program. And one of the key supporters of this program was the private sector, and the financial support of mitigation projects was a major success. And let me just say this in closing. When I was director of FEMA, working with all the state directors, and we had 340 presidential disaster declarations the 8 years I was there. 93 floods, 94 earthquake in California, Northridge, 95 bombing of the Murray Building in Oklahoma City, plus numerous hurricanes and tornadoes in between. And one of the keys that helped states move much faster in local communities was I put in a policy working with each of the state directors of emergency management where they would do their damage estimates and get them to us as quick as they possibly could with the request for a presidential disaster declaration. We would advance them 50% of that estimate up front so they could get the debris removed, get contracts in place, and get to move, because they're going to be audited anyway. And then we would go back in and work with them on damage assessments to see if it totaled to the amount that they gave us. It made a big difference in the recovery efforts. They could recover much faster and much easier. One of the things that I think you consider looking at, because FEMA has a short-term housing program, HUD has the CDBG for the longer term. Look at how you could combine the CDBG program under FEMA combine it with the short-term, long-term housing. I think that might help. One of the things I would highly recommend in closing is that FEMA be brought out of Homeland Security as an independent agency again. There's too much red tape, too much bureaucracy, and it does slow down the process. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Mr. Witt, just to sort of follow up on that, during your tenure as FEMA administrator, what role did the agency play in wildfire response, and what percentage of your resources would you say you spent on wildfire response? I'm looking for kind of a comparison over time.
One of the things that we tried to do, I don't know how successful it was, but we started trying to implement a dead fuel brush removal program, which would eliminate the intensity of the fire. But most of the land out there is U.S. government land, with an exception around some homes. One home in Laguna Beach fire that Governor Wilson at that time and I was at was up on top of a mountain. And he had put clay tile roofs on. He extended the eave of the house over 4 feet out. He put fire-resistant siding on, and he planted fire-resistant shrubs with the rock and the gravel and stuff around his house. His house was the only house that survived that wildfire. So there's ways we can mitigate. There's ways that we can keep people from becoming victims. In one of the cities out there, that Oakland, I was at with Mayor Brown at the time. There was a wildfire there that had burnt 300 homes. And this community came together and built back. And everything in that community was built fire resistant. Even less grass, more rock, more fire retardant shrubbery. And they had a box at the corner of every block.
Right.
And they did it right.
Thank you.
Mr. Witt, if you were leading FEMA's recovery to Hurricane Maria, what would have been your plan for addressing electrical outages on the island of Vieques?
Well, I wasn't in place at the time that happened, and wasn't coordinating in the response. But let me just share this with you: Hurricane Marilyn that hit the Virgin Islands. I flew down there, and it destroyed power, water, infrastructure, airport. And we were able to get things up and running extremely fast.
Mr. Witt, when you were the leader of FEMA, was it a priority for you to rebuild hospitals destroyed by hurricanes?
Yes, it was. Earthquakes as well. There's a company that we work with actually looking at Mozambique right now that can fly in a hospital that they set up. It's a 500-bed hospital, as well as mobile clinics.
Thank you. And is there anything FEMA could be doing now that it is not currently doing to help rebuild critical infrastructures like hospitals in Puerto Rico?
You know, I've been to Puerto Rico several times since the hurricane and doing some work down there, particularly in the housing as well as the energy side. You know, it's hard for me to answer that question by not being there in the middle of it. Would I have done it different? I don't know. I can't tell you because I haven't really looked at the problems or what happened there.